the music for me? Can we do that since I don't want to memorize my words like I'm supposed to? Can I have just some opening music? Have a song made? We checking it out. Whereas I was thinking of Annie Lennox.
You got Annie Lennox over there?
No,
What
that's
you
what my
got?
mind. That's what I was thinking. Sweet dreams are made of these.
Who am I to disagree?
I've
Travel
traveled
the
the world
world in
in
the
the
seven
seven
seas.
seas. Everybody
Everybody is looking
looking
for
for
something.
something.
Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. And some of them want to be abused. Cut it. Thanks.
Drop the mic right there. And see how I say background because you see how I just faded on out. It just kept moving my lips.
You did a great job.
Right?
That was good.
Just
I was
moving
trying to
my
match
lips.
your harmony. I was trying
That's
to match
it.
your
Just,
harmony.
just moving my lips and snapping. That's it. That's all I got for you. I ain't got up.
Moving
I ain't got.
on. Keep your head up.
Moving on.
Keep your head up.
Moving on.
Keep your head up.
Moving on. That's all I got for you.
Did you see Eddie Lennox in the last, probably one of her last award shows?
No.
No, it wasn't an award show. It was a show. She was singing with another band,
Wow.
singing their song. I just can't think of the name of the song. She made it sound better than the original song.
Wow. Like
You know.
that's
people
one of
be
those
doing a
where while
mean
you
cover.
playing
They
and
do
you
a mean
like
cover and you're
That
like,
white girl
dag on
was
it.
you're like, what the hell, yo, guys? We're gonna need to bring her in and do it. We're gonna need to. We're gonna do a remix. We're gonna do a best of CD.
Right. Right. Get us some more money. Get our money back. Yes.
Okay, ladies, we are live, up and running. We're good to go.
How much of that was live?
Pretty much all of it.
Oh, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're so wrong.
Wow. So that is the other. So when people ask you the question, share something that people don't know about you. Well, you just did. The fact that you can actually sing, and I cannot, and that is okay. That is not my gift.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. I love it.
Okay, we're in the show, so one of you guys are. Yeah.
Welcome to Square Media Network. I am LaWana Mayfield, and this is Unapologetically Black. I am so excited to welcome the executive director of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, Miss Kim Graham. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me in my 6th month on the job.
Right, right. While it's still fresh and new, I need to catch you
Yes.
early before you become
Before I'm jaded.
exhausted
That's
and
right.
get jaded with the process. Now, you have had a very busy day, and I would
have.
love for you to have a moment to just tell us, one, what is the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, the GCAA, and what were you doing earlier today?
So the interesting thing is that what I was doing earlier today is really closely tied with the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. So the association has been around for 42 years this year, since 1977. It is the trade association for the multifamily or apartment industry in the region. So not just Mecklenburg County, but 9 surrounding counties, including York County, South Carolina, so Fort Mill, Rock Hill area. And so up until 5 years ago, the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association and the Apartment Association of North Carolina were both operated out of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association staff.
Okay.
And so my predecessor, who retired at the end of 2018, he was dually the executive director for the Apartment Association of North Carolina and the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association.
Wow.
I know, just trips back and forth to Raleigh. Now, obviously, the North Carolina Association was smaller in its inception and grew and kind of kept growing slowly and surely, but didn't need a full-time staff in Raleigh.
So
and
it made sense
Yeah, so
to
it made
split
sense
the role.
to have it be housed in what is the largest apartment association in North Carolina. And so today, actually, the last 3 days have been the Education and Legislative Conference of the Apartment Association of North Carolina.
So there's an actual conference that's
Yes,
hosted.
yes, and it's hosted in Raleigh.
Okay.
And all of the affiliates from across North Carolina come together in Raleigh for this conference. And actually, this year they had record attendance, so more than 630 people attended, which was
Wow.
amazing.
Okay.
And we had more than 100 people come from Charlotte to be a part of this. There are apartment associations also in Raleigh, so the Triangle Apartment Association in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area, Fayetteville, Wilmington, and Western North Carolina. So there are a number of additional apartment associations. And we were there, and today was lobby day. So we were in the Capitol. I love the red carpet going up the steps. I think our chamber is beautiful, frankly.
Wow.
I just do. Ran into a couple of great people from our Mecklenburg County delegation.
Wonderful.
Ran into Representative Kelly Alexander, Representative Lofton and Carney, had meetings with Mary Belk,
Nice.
with Wesley Harris, Joyce Waddell. We had a lot of great meetings. I think we probably hit everybody in our delegation.
Oh, wonderful.
And left good information talking about some of the issues that are important to our industry.
And with being at the conference for the last few days, are you noticing that the conversation is similar regarding the amount of growth that is happening and the boom in apartment building? Or are you also hearing that in some of the other areas, they're not seeing as many new opportunities as like Charlotte is? Because seems like we're busting out the seams, even though we're not.
So there was a great workshop that I attended that had speakers that were both from the Mecklenburg County area, but also from the Wake County area. Yes. So yeah, we are still busting at the seams, and that's what all the great data is showing, that the 100+ people who are moving to Charlotte every single day are putting tons of pressure on the rental industry for sure. So
Right.
multifamily, but also single family, however, more so on the multifamily side. And the experts say that the construction starts for multifamily just will continue on. That single family is slowing down some, just because of the mortgage situation, just because there's folks who are coming here from other places. They're not sure if they want to buy or where they want to buy. And so
Okay.
renting is just kind of the reflex, right?
It's interesting because I was having a conversation earlier today that's the opposite of that. When we think about, and I'm going to ask everyone to forgive me because allergies. So my apologies if I sound a little rougher tonight than the previous shows. Well, we were having a conversation regarding Charlotte went through a good number of years, 2 decades
Yeah.
of not building multifamily. Then when we felt our market crash in 2008-9, the banks and the lending institutions really only started lending for multifamily.
Right.
But there's going to be a reset because the market always resets itself, and there's a question of what happens to all of the single family land that has been rezoned now for multifamily when the time comes where you do want to settle, and home ownership is where you have the opportunity to build wealth, not
Right.
in apartments.
Right.
And when we're seeing high rises that are being built, what happens when the market resets itself and those rents start dropping? Are we
Yeah.
setting ourselves up for the challenges in the future? Basically, setting ourselves up for the same mistakes that we made in the past. And then you end up having this 600 unit, 300 unit development that's now all lower income.
Right. So I don't think we'll ever have that extreme.
Okay.
But what we're seeing is people who are coming, many of the people who are coming to Charlotte, that 100 a day, they're coming from other geographies where rents are much higher than in Charlotte for much less than you can get in Charlotte. So if you're coming from the West Coast, or if you're coming from the Northeast and you're used to paying $2,000, $2,500 a month for something that is a fraction of what even $1,400 a month rents are for 2-bedroom apartment, they're going to be willing to pay a higher rent
Okay.
because they're going to get more than what they even bargained for, but they're also used to paying a higher rent. So that's not for them, it's just it's non-reflexive, right? They're not saying this is too much. They're saying this is great,
Even
and
when
I'm
you think about the cost of living, because the cost of living is very different here, and our salaries keeping up
right.
with this new standard.
Well, so the folks who are coming from the Northeast, especially those who are selling and are
Okay.
not coming down here to buy another house,
Correct.
say a baby boomer may be selling up north and thinking, "I'll come down here. I don't want to buy a house. I want to rent." They may be seasoned later in their years, and so they're like, "I want to rent. I want all the wonderful amenities that come with renting, or I want to rent something that's for them average or below average in terms of costs, and still have twice the square footage that they had where they lived." I mean, just think about someone in California, and we know what those houses look like that go for
Yes.
350,000. They're 700 square foot
Right.
in
Right.
California.
$1 million
Yes.
homes, excuse me, is their what they consider their ghettos.
Yes.
Because we
Yes.
went, we had a conference that was in California the end of last year. And we did a housing tour.
Sure.
During that tour, they're driving us through and they're saying, okay, so here's basically what they consider their slum area. These were $3 million homes. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
What? Like, how does that happen?
Right.
But it also puts in the back of my mind, as Charlotte is growing, how do we avoid that? How do we have a good mixture? But I think the challenge on the ground is, for a lot of people in the community, they think that, well, there's too many apartments being built, which is one of the other reasons why I'm so excited about the fact that you're here tonight to help give some real information on when we're having conversations regarding what is affordability in housing.
Right.
So the reality is there are no more $300 rents, $375 rents, $550 rents. But also the development costs are very different. Where it used to cost $20, $25, $30, $35,000 per unit to build.
Yeah, I think you reported that it's 80,000 more, but it's even more than that.
It's over
depending-
$100,000
Yes, it
per unit, 100
Yes.
to 150,000
Yes.
per unit to develop today. So I want to give an opportunity to share from the apartment association perspective what you all are seeing on the ground, and not only the opportunities, but what are some of the challenges that you see?
So first of all, I'm going to thank you for coming and meeting with our Housing Affordability Subcommittee on May 3rd. They loved you.
Oh, I
and
learned so much.
And they appreciated that because part of this is just having access to people who can make the decisions around red tape, around bureaucracy, around permitting, around all the regulations, right? So I had a conversation with a construction company and a developer, and they've been in the business for 40 years, 45
Okay.
years. They were around here in Charlotte where we had plans, architectural plans and permitting that maybe no more than 20 pages. 20 pages.
Okay.
Yes, we have developments in Charlotte that were built in the 70s, and the architectural design and engineering plans were no bigger than 20 pages. Well, you know now that those
Wow.
plans are probably hundreds of pages. And with that, well, one, we're just killing trees. Let me just say that right now.
But we have modern technology now, so you can go online.
Yes, but they're still being printed.
That is true.
They're still somewhere being bound.
That is
but
true.
the other is just that with every level of check, with every level of check off, and one more inspection that really is kind of unnecessary, it just creates more costs. And all of those costs get rolled into the pro forma for
So
that
let's
development.
think about that for a moment, because we have to have checks and balances in
Yes.
place to ensure that you get a quality development, so that you don't have a situation like what we've seen on the news in other communities where there's a fire and we didn't have the proper
Absolutely. Sprinkler systems.
sprinkler
Yep.
systems and or the materials that were used.
Yeah, they were easily flammable. So yeah.
Right. So there has to be regulation in place. There has to be some checks and balances. But can you just give an example of a couple of things that may be excessive?
So there are some folks who will appreciate the fact that I'm going to talk about sidewalks, right?
Yes.
Sidewalks.
Okay, I love a sidewalk though.
We
Bike
need
lanes are
sidewalks.
debatable,
We
but-
need sidewalks.
yeah.
However, if we switch from requiring say, a 4-foot sidewalk to a 6-foot sidewalk, and there's already a 4-foot sidewalk existing, why not grandfather that 4-foot sidewalk in and require the 6-foot sidewalk if, in fact, it's new sidewalk being constructed, and not
Okay.
have to tear out 4-foot sidewalk, which is perfectly fine, and put in 6-foot sidewalk. Those costs alone, concrete is expensive, but the
Okay.
labor associated with tearing it out and then putting it
Because you
back in
can't
when it was
just add on
no,
the
you
other
can't.
2 feet.
That's right. You
Because
can't just
it
add
has
it
to
on.
be level.
It
Now-
all needs to be consistent. Yes.
Now, I would say the other side of that is because we recognize the error of our ways. Those 4-foot sidewalks are not wide enough for 2 individuals to walk beside each other. So what you're
True.
seeing in community is, say, a family.
Mm-hmm.
You may see a parent with small children, and those children are either walking in front of them
Or
walking
behind.
behind them,
Yes.
and neither one are safe.
Right.
Opposed to being able to hold their hand and
Right.
having them right next to them.
Right.
So we've learned the error of our ways with knowing that we need
Mm-hmm.
wider sidewalks. But I also can see the other side of that of if it's an existing, why would we tear down
That's
to
right.
rebuild
We're adding
opposed
costs.
to brand new? Here's the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that is one of them. The plan review process that tends to drag on a little bit longer, and I will say that the city and the county have made great strides towards making sure that that process is a little shorter. It could be even shorter.
So what is the time? What is the average time today for plan review? And this
Sadly,
is
there's no average
for the
time.
people to understand that there are multiple steps to review the full development plan.
Mm-hmm. So you have preliminary plans, then you have plan changes, requests of changes from planning, engineering. Those come back. The back and forth gets really, really long in the tooth sometimes.
Okay.
However, I will again give the city credit that it has tried to build in some shorter time frames.
Okay.
However, the back and forth there can be just less of the back and forth.
Streamlining.
Yes,
the whole
streamline it
process.
even more, because with every day that development doesn't go from start to finish is just one more added cost. It just gets lengthy, and we know that construction costs, construction materials themselves, skilled labor. Somebody's going to get hired from a job that may have been set to start in 2 weeks because it got delayed for a
You've
month.
lost that
Yeah, you've lost that
employee.
skilled labor
Okay.
because guess what? There's so many new starts here, new construction starts, that the competition for skilled labor is just, I mean, it's cutthroat. God bless you.
Excuse me.
The
Thank you.
average age of
And
God
this is
bless
allergies.
you.
And this is the reality of being
God
on
bless
a
you.
live show. You get your 3
We're just going to
in.
have a little button we push
That's
that says
it.
God bless
for the,
you.
For the 3. The 3 has come in.
But yeah, the average age of like electrical journeymen, 54.
Because we
Carpentry.
have not been
Pushing our
really
trades.
pushing trades.
Yes.
We've gotten away from trades,
Yes.
and because of that, we aren't replenishing
Yes.
and also having apprenticeships and internships
Yes.
to learn these trades.
That's absolutely right, which is one of the things that we're pushing at the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. What a lot of people don't know, and right now, what I keep saying and what have been saying is we need to rebuild our skilled labor force in the apartment
Yes.
industry, but not just the apartment industry, right? Across the trades. So carpentry, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, painting, property management as a
General
whole,
contracting.
and maintenance. That's right.
Right.
And so that greatly impacts how much it costs for folks to deliver units. It greatly impacts that. If I have to pay a premium, if a developer or a builder has to pay a premium for skilled labor, then guess what? That's going to drive up the construction costs. That's going to drive up the total development costs of that new development. And we saw it. I mean, when I was working at the Housing Partnership, we saw it there with developments that have come out of the ground in the last 2 or 3 years. It just made it very painful. So I'm going to turn from that for a second and just say that part of the housing crunch here in Charlotte is the fact that, one, we don't have enough units,
Right.
but it's also a living wage issue because you have to be able to afford the units no matter what they cost,
And
whether
that
it's
is the
$900 a
challenge.
month or
Right.
$2,000 a month. You need
When
to be able to
I'm
afford it.
reading and having meetings and trying to understand better, the question that I'm always asking is, okay, let's think about the workers, not the executives.
Right.
Let's think about the workers. Can the workers
Right.
afford to live here?
Right.
What is being built for them?
Right.
So there is a major conversation regarding CHA and what you're trying to do in this whole conversation of affordability. So it will be helpful for people to know, what does that look like on your end?
Right. So for us, most people don't understand that the Housing Authority is actually a member of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association.
Really?
Yeah, but most of the, if not all of the traditional affordable housing developers that we have in our region are members of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. You have to participate as a member in order to have access to the National Apartment Association's lease and the
So,
Apartment Association of North Carolina lease.
okay, now so I was just about to ask you, what does that membership give you access to?
Right.
Why should you be a member of, as a multifamily / apartment developer owner, why should you be a member of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association?
And so I would say the majority of the owners of the 161,855 units that make up the apartment association here, in the region, are to gain access to that legal lease, that legal national lease for those who use the national lease, which many of them do, and to that North Carolina lease, which we are one of several states that have a state lease as well. And it's because that lease has been vetted. It has attorneys that have looked over it. It keeps getting updated. It's updated regularly. I think the NAA, the National Apartment Association, told us recently that lease had about 2,000 updates, tweaks, and changes in 2018.
Okay, so unlike what government does, y'all actually are much quicker in response time to the needs that you're seeing happening on the ground.
We absolutely are. In addition to that, though, our association provides probably 25 or so seminars and workshops throughout the year that our members participate in, and they get reduced member rates on that. And so think of things like, if you're a maintenance technician, you need to be able to access pool school. Pool school is certified pool operator school. It makes sure that you're certified to operate a pool on your property, and that you know exactly what you know. What does the chlorine level need to be? You know what to do if something goes wrong, if a valve goes wrong. So you're aware of EPA standards. So we offer EPA training. We also have landlord, tenant, and eviction law that we teach, which is around ethics, but also just all the landlord and tenant law updates that come out from our General Assembly. So we have a host of workshops and seminars that we provide our members with, one, to help them do their jobs, be in their business to their best ability, but also to train up, so career development types of things.
So when you think about those workshops, is there also a segment on specifically dealing with the working poor community? Because it's not the same level of income. It is difficult for some individuals to identify first, last security deposit. If the rent is $800 a month, having to come up with $2,400 in order to even get through the door, but also recognizing that there is a desire to help address the need, or maybe I should ask as a question, is there a desire?
So that is a great question, and I will say that I've had conversations with our members. Housing CLT, Social Serve is a member of the GCAA.
Okay.
The Lotus campaign started by Phil Payne with Ginkgo Residential, the Housing Authority. So I've had conversations with Fulton Meacham, the CEO of CHA, with Harry Mack, who's over Housing CLT, and I've said, hey, we probably need to look at doing some sort of, whether it's a certification, whether it's a training, offering something on site that says to property owners, hey, these are folks who've gone through training, whether it's ready to rent training or financial management or some combination thereof, so that there's a little more faith in feeling like, hey, I'm going to get my rent, because at the end of the day, that's what a property owner wants. They want to get their rent.
Their income.
That's
and
right.
we can have a real conversation about the fact that some property owners have been burned when they have attempted to help someone based off of the circumstances and didn't necessarily do additional vetting. And that's something that we should talk about, just to have full transparency in the conversation, that you hurt future renters when you're that renter that
Right.
doesn't pay the rent, that causes damage to the
Damage,
home.
yes.
Like we were talking before, and you shared some of worst case scenario in quotes,
Which it
just for
is.
people to understand, what that looks like after you've rented this unit and you took a leap of faith trying to give back, and then you walk in
Right.
and what do you see?
Yeah, hole in the wall. Yeah. And so that I do tell people all the time, like, that's the exception. It's not the rule.
Right.
So the YouTube video that you see where the property owner is walking through a house and all of the walls have holes, all the sheetrock has holes, the mirrors have been pulled off the walls, the flooring has been torn up, the carpet looks like the ceiling opened up and it rained on it for days on end. So that's the worst case scenario, and that is not, I would say by and large, that's not the rule.
Right.
However, all you need is one instance of that, and word of mouth is effective. And so you have one property owner that says, this was my experience, and whether that's not just relegated to the working poor or people who are
Right,
that is
because
not
that anyone
can
can step
happen.
in.
That's right.
Because you don't know what's going on in someone's life
That's
at
right.
any particular time.
That's right.
But I think it's not clarified, that it's just said, well, while the conversation around creating an opportunity for those who are working class in the community,
Right.
an incident happens, and you throw that incident
Right.
out on the table, so people naturally want to grab that incident for the current topic, opposed to saying, so was that someone that had a voucher, or was that a
Right. Was that a
market rate
private
renter?
payer?
Was that
That's
a market
right.
rate renter? Well, actually, it was a market rate renter. I was like, well, okay, well, can we clarify that so that
Right.
you just don't put this
Right.
bad energy, recognizing that, yes, it could happen,
Absolutely.
but that doesn't mean you should penalize all future renters
Absolutely.
because of what happened in this incident.
I 100% agree. And I will tell you, I've been a landlord for 20 years. And in my 20 years of being a landlord, I had one instance of that happen to me. And it was unfortunate that it happened to be someone who did, in fact, have a Section 8 voucher. However, because I work in housing, and because I had enough of a history of where that wasn't the case, I did not hold that against a whole group of people.
Right.
And I just said,
You didn't write everyone off. You
exactly.
just knew that individual
That's right.
was not ready
That's
to
exactly
step into
right.
this responsibility.
I've also rented to former public housing folks and did not have an issue. So I think you can have both sides of the coin. At the end of the day, vetting people, understanding that people come with different things in their ground, right? Different things that they're dealing with, whether that's a domestic violence issue
Right.
where they have a restraining order, and you as a landlord have to make sure that they are safe and that you abide by the laws that are governing that situation. But also just understanding that it's not always about the bottom line. And so I give credit to those multifamily owners who are working in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County to provide what I would say working class workforce housing for folks, setting aside units in their properties or their communities for things like Lotus Campaign, even the future rent subsidies.
So when we talk about Lotus Campaign, for those who are at home, because we both constantly receive text messages, emails, requests on social media regarding someone needing access to housing because their current home that they were renting
Yes.
has been purchased and they have X number of days to vacate the premises, or their whole apartment complex has been purchased.
Absolutely.
Where do people go today to even find our opportunity?
That's a great question. And so I send people often to socialserve.com, socialserve.com.
Okay. So for those, SOCIALSERV as in Victor E.com. It is all together. Socialserve.com is a great starting place for a website.
Yeah, Housing CLT is manned out of social serve. And so
Okay.
Housing CLT is the initiative that's trying to match renters who are lower wealth with properties that landlords traditionally would not put on the market for folks who are lower wealth, but who have negotiated with Housing CLT for those families to be in those properties, to waive some of their criteria, and for Housing CLT to provide a guarantee to those landlords against damages, but also for security deposits. And so that is, I would say, one model for us. That's a similar model to what Lotus Campaign is
Okay.
doing as well. And so those are, but there are probably 3 or 4 other groups or organizations that are doing similar things. They just don't have the benefit of having the city and the county behind it like Housing
Right.
CLT does, or having a former developer behind it like Ginkgo Residential's, Phil Payne, where he and his wife and others started Lotus Campaign. And so it's kind of these small mom and pop one-offs. I think I just read a story this morning about a gentleman, Healing Charlotte, Greg
I've heard-
Jackson,
yes.
who saw a story about a teenager who was arrested for stealing, I don't know, $400 or something. And I thought, that's a great story. I didn't get through reading it all, but I said, this more and more of this is happening. Makes me proud of Charlotte when I see this happening, because that's the Charlotte that I fell in love with as a 17-year-old, and why I decided to stay here after I graduated.
The community is changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Charlotte natives and those that have been here over, I would give 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been here 15 years or more, Charlotte has made its way through your blood.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this desire
Yeah.
to give back, but there's also the reality that so much is changing very rapidly
Mm-hmm.
in the city, and that's causing a lot of angst for a lot of people
Right.
to try to figure out next steps, which is why I wanted to have the opportunity to talk about what's out there. And I'm not going to put you on the spot to make a commitment one way or another, but what, as you were speaking, that triggered a thought where, and I cannot remember the name of the apartment complex right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I've received several text messages about yet another complex that has been purchased and bought out. Seems like there will be a direct connection where we will automatically reach out to both Greater Charlotte Apartment Association as well as Social Serve to start looking at ways to transition these residents. Now, the city had to do something very similar
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago
Okay.
before the new property evaluations came out,
Mm-hmm.
where a complex off of Monroe Road was purchased, and there was a lot of relocation that happened. Now, the positive
Was that Arcadian?
yes,
Okay.
the positive for that one is the purchasing company also put money into helping with the relocation.
And that
Unfortunately,
happens. That's happened. It's not all the time,
it doesn't
right?
happen
But that's
all
happening.
the time. And personally, I wish there was a way through legislative language that it would be mandated, because
We'll stick
this
a pin in
conversation-
that, because it
Right.
sounds like a trip for you to Raleigh.
to Raleigh to ask for legislative authority to really look at having some accountability, because from my understanding, this new buyer cares less about the community, about the residents who are being displaced. And what we're learning is that a lot of people don't realize the importance of having a lease, and a long-term lease, and not a month-to-month lease,
Right.
because a month-to-month lease does not protect you.
Oh yeah, there are very few protections. There are some, but very few. And the length of time for notice, for you to leave, or the renewal. I mean, it's the month to month. So you don't have, with a 6-month lease or even a year-long lease or more, that lengthy period where you're guaranteed. You pay your rent, you're guaranteed.
Or
And-
if someone were to come in and buy and say, now we're in May, but you have a lease through the end of the year, they will have to buy out your lease. So you would have some funding to potentially help with that move into a new space.
And so buyouts are typically not, they're non-renews are kind of typically the custom, right? So non-renews when the lease is up.
Right, but if they're coming in, they're outside, and this is more of a question for clarification, not only for me, but for those who are tuning in. Say a company comes in tomorrow and negotiates to buy, but the majority of the residents have a lease until December. What happens?
So it does the lease that they signed definitely governs what happens, and so it could be a lease that wasn't, especially if they're not a member of the apartment association here. It could be a lease that doesn't conform with either the National Apartment Association lease or the North Carolina state lease, but still complies with North Carolina state law. So that's one thing, and without knowing what the nuances of that lease is, I can't speak specifically. What I will say is that let's think of things like homes that are sold, vacation homes that are sold,
Right.
vacation homes that are sold to people. You have to honor, the new buyer has to honor 90 days out of vacation rentals. So they don't just get to cancel out. They don't get to say, well, I want to live in this house. And so I don't care that people have rented this house for the next 90 days, for weekly for vacations. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. They can't do that under the law. So there are protections there, but that lease is the protection, and neither side can unilaterally break a lease. If you do that, then you're in breach. But if the tenant doesn't comply with the tenant's requirements in the lease, then the tenant breaches the lease. If the owner doesn't comply with its side, like not providing heat during certain months of the year, right?
Right,
Habitable,
which we have,
habitable living
we
conditions,
have that-
exactly.
those
Yeah.
issues. So also with thinking about what you just shared, how would I, as a renter in the market, identify if this complex that I'm looking at, because first of all, I'm running all over town,
Right.
having to pay $50 deposit application fee
Application
here,
fees.
75 there, all these different application fees. What should be my first step to at least find out if they are a part of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, because there's a greater chance I would have better protection.
So that first of all, they can call us. They can call us and ask if that property is or that community or that management company is a part of. Yeah, they can call us, and I've gotten calls before from general public asking if a particular community is a part of our membership. So that's the first thing. If they are a lower wealth family, they can certainly contact Legal Services, which is Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy now. They could also contact the city's Community Relations Committee, and Willie Ratchford's team, and I encourage people to do that as well. There are a number of, the city of Charlotte has a number of really solid protections for the public and for residents, which is great. And most folks don't know about it, and so they fall by the wayside or they get taken advantage of.
And I think there's also the challenge that the city doesn't have as much authority as
Yes.
people believe
Yes.
or understand the city
Yes,
to
because
have,
otherwise you guys would have already bought Lake Harbor, right?
right.
That's what everybody wants y'all to
that's
do.
Right. But the challenge of that is it's a privately held, privately
That's
owned
right.
complex.
That's right.
That's not a member of the association.
No.
It's owned by
An
an absentee landlord
yes.
who is a slumlord. And I have said this multiple times publicly because, one, the conditions that people are living in, and there's this, I have personally a fundamental challenge with saying that we should use tax dollars to buy out a slumlord, because your whole model is doing what you do. Is to go and just buy another complex that you're going to let be run down and not make sure that the residents have a healthy quality of life, a safe quality of
Right.
life, because your default is government is going to pay to get rid of this,
Potentially,
opposed to having a legislative authority for government to hit you with enough fines where you're either going to fix it or you're going to sell it.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And if government has to be the one to buy it, then government gets to buy it at cost, not at market value.
Right.
Because that's
Absolutely.
a very different conversation.
And especially since it's had its own revaluation, and its revaluation is interesting.
So when you look at those challenges, the other big piece is making sure that people understand there are some steps that you can take,
Right.
but also recognizing that there are some limitations because by law, I cannot make you rent to me.
That's right.
And housing discrimination and income discrimination is very real.
Right.
And there's no protections for someone to say, I will not accept vouchers.
You're right. That's exactly right. But I will say that declinations they do have to comply with fair housing. That's very real. And so if someone can prove that an owner violated fair housing laws, then that's something that the Community Relations Committee pursues and they investigate that. But you're right. I mean, there is nothing in our state that says a property owner has to rent to someone who has a Section 8 voucher, and that is in fact unfortunate. And I'd say more than anything, I think it's about awareness. I think it's about dispelling this myth that the worst cases are all the cases,
Right.
because perception is reality. And I can't tell you how many conversations I'm in and have been over the years where Section 8 comes up and folks are like, ugh, no. And that's awful.
And we have to change that conversation because we need to have those who have had positive experiences, they need to be the ones that's leading that conversations
Yes.
with their fellow
Yes.
owners for them to understand that it's not in the best interest of the community
Right.
for you to write
Right.
anyone off, for the simple fact is your workers need to be able to live in the city.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If we don't have a city that is accessible both for those that are wealthy, those that are moderate income, those that are at a lower income, then that
our services are going to suffer.
Everything.
Our services are going to
all
suffer.
services are
Yes.
going to suffer, and we have to figure that out. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit because you have shared a lot of information for the fact that you've only been in this role for 6 months, and I did not gloss over it. I didn't even touch it because I wanted to touch it now. The fact that you are the first African American, first female to be executive director of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association.
I am. Yes, I am. I'm very
So
proud
what
of
has
that.
that transition been like?
So I will tell you that as someone who's a real estate broker, so I realize that I'm a student of real estate. So the real estate game is a very male dominated game. In history, the American history, men were the owners of land and property.
We had to go to
centuries
court
ago
for women to be able to own
Right.
land. So yes,
Exactly. So that's not lost on me. And some of that is still kind of in the ground around real property and ownership and even the development world here. But the fortunate thing for me is that while I'm the first African American to lead this organization, that I have a colleague in Raleigh who has been 20 years African American head of the Triangle Apartment Association.
Okay.
And she's also a sorority sister of mine. We're both Deltas. And
so the Deltas are representing.
I had to lean hard. I was like, okay, I need you to kind of talk to me about this thing. And I'm aware of the trade association culture because I worked for the North Carolina Parent Teachers Association. Interestingly enough, the PTA has often been a very non-minority led organization. And so I think that being there and leading in the North Carolina PTA, and I was the president of the Mecklenburg County PTA Council for 4 years. Doing that, I think, helped prepare me, whether I understood it or not, prepared me for this role.
You never know what steps God's preparing you for.
And I do count it all God because I know that this assignment is from Him. I know it is. I know it with everything in me, but He also talked to me about it even before I knew what it was. And so that has been, for me, self-fulfilling and gratifying. But it also makes me feel good when I do things like attend our leasing and manager appreciation night, which we had a few weeks ago. And when I did the introduction and welcome people, and 15 minutes later, two lovely African American ladies with one of our local property management companies came up and they said, "We heard you speak. We want to know how we can get more involved in the
Yes.
GCAA." And I was like, "I know exactly how you can. Let me have you talk to my member services director." The fact that we have so many property folks who are leasing consultants, but also groundskeepers and maintenance folks. And I want them to see all shades in our association. I want them to see themselves reflected in our association. And I think that in itself is going to help be more representative, but also me helping connect our apartment industry to young people.
Right.
We have amazing jobs, living wage jobs in the apartment industry, entry level living wage jobs. I want us to provide our training to young people in high schools that are underserved, and we are about to do that in
And not so
CMS.
young. So don't forget that those Gen Xers that are out there, some of them are transitioning
Yes.
in positions. Their
Yes.
careers are changing. I shared with you before that when I was much younger, in my 20s, that was my dream. My ideal dream job was to be a leasing agent because I loved the idea of being able not only to fulfill my desire of helping people, but I just thought that would just be the coolest job, to meet and talk and greet with people
Yes.
all day.
Yes.
But that wasn't a time. I mean, at that time, I had
Right.
locks. My locks were past my waist. I did not see anyone that
Looked
looked
like
like
you.
me.
Yes.
If I did see someone at a complex, they were much older,
Right.
which meant they were of a very different time. So it was a lot of wigs and or perms. So I was just outside of there was a look.
The norm.
If there
Right.
was a African American female that worked in the leasing office, there was definitely a look for her, and that look was not ethnic or identifiably ethnic
Right.
outside of her skin tone.
Right.
So it was a very different feeling. So I would ask you for not only the young people that you're going into the schools,
Right.
but those young professionals, what advice would you share with them for the next one that says, well, I want to be the next executive director, or
Yeah.
if not for the GCAA, I want to go up to Greensboro and run that one. What
Yeah.
would you share with them?
So I would say they have to follow their own path, right? If that's the path for you, if you think that that's where you're going and what you want to do, don't let anything deter you from that, right? So if this is you and you are unapologetically you,
Yes.
be unapologetically you. I am 100% unapologetically me. And
But you also know what you know.
well, I do
So
know
you
what I
come
know,
to the
right?
table
Yeah.
prepared. You don't come to the table half stepped.
No.
You come in with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience.
Well, I appreciate you for saying
and
that.
a lot of relationships that you have built over the years. Because again,
Yes.
you've been in this role for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But the information that you have shared during the time that we've had this conversation, and I hope people wrote down, and if not, are going to go back and watch later, because you gave information that is so vital to
appreciate
today's
that.
conversation regarding not giving up, not
No.
thinking Charlotte is not for you, that we're trying to price people out. It is not an intention to price people out of the
That's right.
community, and there are groups out there purposefully working towards creating opportunities.
Yeah, a more welcoming, a more inclusive city. I mean, here's the reality, LaWana, is that when you look across the leadership in our community, much of our city council, if not the majority, is African American or of color. Our county commission, our school board, our police department, our fire department, right, for the first time, right? So our sheriff's department, departments within the city and county government.
Executive directors.
Yes, but not just that. Let's go further. Corporate, Atrium, right?
Right.
Lots of people in very high profile positions and people of color. And so what I would say is that look at Charlotte. There's a place for people of color here. You're not going to just skate on. You
And there's a
don't think that you
place
don't need to know
for
what you
black people.
know. You have to know
Right.
what you know.
Right.
Right?
You cannot half step.
Yeah.
You need to be prepared to put the work in.
Right.
And I think that's a different conversation that we have. And I blame us because I'm going to have to say that my generation, for those who are parents, we allow for laws to be changed. We allow for disciplinary actions, not abuse. There's a
Right.
difference between abuse and discipline. But we allow discipline to be taken out of schools. We allow discipline to be taken out of homes. We created an environment of everyone receives a trophy just for showing up.
Okay, I'm loving this right now because I swear I think I just heard you say the participation trophy, the no spanking your kids in public. That was what this is what all led to this. Okay, I thought that's what I heard you say.
I mean, let's think about it for a minute. Let's go back. So I had a good dose of fear as a child. My mama didn't play. Like sometimes it wasn't even about, it was just the look and the anticipation of like, I made a conscious decision. Like if I was going to do this,
I was
made
okay
a
with
conscious
it, right?
decision of what was going to happen on the other end. Like if
Yeah.
I get caught, this is the beating I know that I'm going to get. So I really need to really think about, is this worth this, or do I
Right.
want to save that for something
Right.
later? Like
Right.
I need to really think about, make a conscious decision if this is what I want to do. Do I want this? Do I want to be number one? Do I want that ribbon? Then that
Yeah.
means I'm going to need to actually study. That means I'm going to have to pull out my little palm cards.
Yes, yes.
That means
I might have to actually put my phone down for a little bit.
That means when I'm at work and you come in and I'm actually, how are you today? Welcome, opposed to
Right.
this.
Right.
That means that when I go into the office, I go in early or on time.
Yes.
And that some days I might have to actually work late
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what I'm working on isn't completed. That doesn't mean I get to check out because these are the hours
Absolutely.
that my schedule says.
Absolutely.
That means I need to go a little above and beyond.
That is grit. That is great work ethic, and I promise you, employers love that. I'm an employer, and I love that.
And that's one of the challenges because at the exact same time that the city is looking at about a 3.5% unemployment rate,
Yeah.
I am constantly
Super low.
having conversations where people cannot keep staff.
Yeah.
There are
it's super low.
so many jobs that are out there. But at the same time, it seems like we have a lot of people in community who aren't connecting to these jobs. Well, part of that is the skill set.
Yes.
So we need to help identify what skills you don't have.
Right.
But you have to be willing to want to learn.
Absolutely.
You have to come to the table. You got to put a little bit of, you got to put some sweat equity
Absolutely.
into it. Because even with what you mentioned, I don't know if there are young women and men out there, specifically black young men and women and Latino and Asian. No, it's not the accumulation of people of color, but specifically identifying our immigrant community, our refugee community, our
Right.
Caribbean, to know that you can be a leasing agent. You can be a leasing manager.
You can be a maintenance technician, a maintenance supervisor, a regional property manager. You can
and you get discounted rent.
You get discounted rent. You also can get tuition assistance, full benefits, competitive salary, and a fun and never dull working environment. But here's the other thing. I think last told the statistics, somewhere around 50% of our industry employees do not have a 4-year degree. The salary, you can earn 6 figures without a 4-year degree in the
Really?
apartment industry.
Really?
And that is not the exception. That
I
is
need to
actually the rule.
I need to reconsider this part-time job.
Most people don't know it because their relationship with the apartment industry is transactional. It is renting an apartment, it is paying rent, or is being evicted from their apartment.
Right.
It is not, oh, I understand that there are apartment communities, that there are residential property managers, that there are various segments that attend to this industry, that Bark Park was intentional, that the grooming station was intentional, that all the wonderful parties and things, that's actually part of retaining tenants. That's not just, oh, we want to give you
Right, the party
I won't say
planner and
what
the
we
logistical
the parties are
person.
great, right? Music and hula hooping and pools and great food and other things. It is a fabulously fun industry to work in. And I promise you, all the folks that I know and have talked to have been in this industry for more than 20 years, have never been unemployed in this industry.
Are you serious?
I'm
So
not
where would
joking.
so for those that are out there who may be hearing this and
Yes.
you may have sparked the interest, where do you start?
So here's the great thing. One, we have a hiring event. We're calling it our hiring extravaganza, the first time
I did not
ever.
know that, but that was the perfect segue.
Yes, we have a hiring extravaganza. It's on June 13th, open to the public, 2 to 5 at the Junior Achievement Facility on Graham Street. So that's the first thing in the Camp North End
June
campus.
13th.
June 13th is a Thursday.
2 p.m. to
2 to
5
5 p.m. Hiring. It's a hiring event, not a career fair.
So bring your resume.
Yes.
Come dressed professionally.
Yes.
What you just heard from the executive director, you do not have to have a 4-year degree.
Nope.
I would think the first thing that you would need to even consider being a leasing agent is having a personality.
A great personality. That's it.
Having
You just
a
got to have a
personality.
good personality.
You
That is
know?
honestly, that's going to get you 75% of the way there, is having a great personality, because that position is about sales, right? Drawing people in, wanting them to live there. They come in
And we
they
need
see you-
diversity. We got to
Yes,
have diversity. 'Cause
we do.
In 2016, when 2015, when my wife proposed to me, I said, okay, I'm going to give me a part-time job. Another part-time job to help pay for this doggone wedding
This a
that I wanted.
part-time job.
Because that part-time, that full-time, part-time pay job that I have with government, I was like, okay, I need to get me a part-time job. I was at an event in Uptown at Foundation for the Carolinas. They was hosting an event and started talking to this woman, and we just hit it off. She happened to be the concierge manager
Yes.
of a complex uptown. We started talking, and
Is
I
this
was like,
is it? You're not going to name the complex?
it's the
uptown?
View.
Okay, I'm
it's the
like,
View.
okay.
I'm not a fan. So this is what
I like the View. That was 2015. I like the View.
you can like them.
It's Northwood Raven. I like the View.
You know what? No, let me rephrase that. It was not the View.
Amen.
It was off of, if you're going, of which I'm geographically challenged.
Okay.
So if you're coming from 4th Street and you go up Graham to 7th Street, and you know when you get to college, you can't go straight across, that complex that's right there.
Sky House.
Sky House.
Okay.
That is it. So she and I hit it off. Great relationship. She has like this super bubbly
personality. Yes.
I used to be like, oh, I need coffee. Every time I see you, I don't care what time of day it is, I need coffee before I'm going to see you.
Yes.
Amazing personality. So I did concierge because I'm like, I need something that isn't really mentally taxing,
Yes.
but that'll bring you in a little money. When I tell you, one, nobody in that leasing office look like us. And when I tell you, when you do not have diversity in the leasing office, that also determines what type of residence that you have. So almost every black person that came in to look at a unit, one of the top questions that will be asked, not only by the people who live there, other people that live there, and in that leasing office, and it was an office of only like 2 or 3 people, was related to whether or not they were some type of athlete. Like there could not just be working black people, whether you're executive or not.
Right.
It was all whether or not you're some type of athlete.
Interesting.
It was also a very interesting environment with the relationship between those that worked in the leasing office and some of the residents.
Okay.
So they clearly had personal relationships
Interesting.
with residents, and there was not a
Clear defined
boundary
gotcha.
between being in the office and living there.
Right.
And one of the agents was the biggest offender of all the rules because they had a pet that they never took, that they did not properly take in and out.
Oh, wow.
Now, mind you, you have cameras. Mind you, you know y'all have cameras, but you would have residents in there. Probably one of the reasons why I'm not really a fan of high rises, because the higher up you are, the less likely that you're going to be a responsible pet
to come
owner,
down.
to take your
Gotcha.
dog up and
Okay.
out, even whatever the pet is, take it up and out, even though you had a dog park created for you. So what do you think will be the messes in the hallways and in the elevators?
Well, one, I'd hope that after all those millions were invested in a high rise, that would not happen. So that's my
You would
first
think
thing.
that.
But I would hope so.
And it comes with that. Your first point of entry
Mm-hmm.
is those leasing agents, but that's also, those are the ones who are maintaining.
Right.
You also create. You have the ability as a leasing agent to create true diversity in your community, because
Right.
that complex is
Right.
just that. You are helping to create a community, and if you want a community with individuals that are elitist, then you will create a community with individuals that are elitist. And the other challenge is you had, of which I don't really understand how it works, but some apartment units have relationships with some of our schools, and you have very talented young people out there, but they are 16, 17-year-olds that should not be living on their own, that are in a complex surrounded by adults. And I'm like, I literally watched, I had to
This was while
share
you were
information.
working? Okay, so this is
during
while
the
you were
time.
working.
This is why these are the things you see behind the scenes. And I'm like, if two things changed, if there was just a different energy on the front end, a lot of this would be very different. And when you don't have diversity in management, when you don't have diversity in that leasing office, if the
Sure.
only diversity you see is in the maintenance crew, that changes the whole dynamic. It also changes the dynamic for the residents, because the residents, if only thing they're seeing is certain ethnicities as part of the cleaning crew, but not part of the management.
It may
not
give a
part-
false sense of entitlement, right?
It does, and
So-
it's a challenge of.
So I'm going to pause you for
Oh.
a second, because you had a unique experience. One, you got to see how the sausage was made at that particular
see it.
development. But I'm going to lift up the view, since we mentioned the view.
Right, I do have friends that live over there.
The view, right? The view has a very diverse staff in 2019, right? Because you worked at Sky House in 2015, and so I don't know what changes may have occurred at the Sky House, because I haven't
would
visited, but
assume-
I'll go out and
I would
do some
assume there's
visits.
been some changes.
But the view, a high rise uptown, high-end high rise, very diverse staff, diverse from the leasing agents to property manager, the concierge staff, very diverse. I know how diverse it is because I went by there to take some pictures for our new storefront, our RPM Careers Exploration Center at the JA Finance Park, and all the pictures on that wall are from people who work for Northwood Raven, some from Catalyst and some from The View. Very diverse staff. I was very, very, very pleased. And I also saw a minority who I knew but didn't realize he was a member of the GCAA, and he was there transacting business, doing some installations. And I said, wow, this is really great. I'm glad to see that our
Wonderful.
members work with other members, but also that they work with diverse members. That made me feel really good about what's happening with
that they're
our-
already doing it
Yes,
on their own,
absolutely,
without there having to be
some
a
more
mandate.
more intentionality around it. That the tea leaves are being read, and now we're just going to be even more intentional about doing
So
that.
creating opportunities. So it's on both sides. One, giving the opportunity. One, welcoming people in by letting them know job fair again is coming up.
Yes, June. Now, it's not a job fair. It is
It
a
is a
hiring
hiring
extravaganza. And
Yes.
we will be hiring people, and not the GCAA, but we have member companies. So Greystar, Northwood Raven, Southwood Realty, Ginkgo Residential, RKW Residential, Blue Ridge Companies, Camden Trust. I could go on and on and on. There will be companies there ready to hire people on the spot.
2 to 5 p.m.
2 to 5 p.m. at the Junior Achievement Campus on North Graham Street in the Camp North End campus. You do not want to miss it.
Is
Open to
there
the
a
public.
website someone can go to find out?
Yes. So they can
more
go to our
information?
website, greater, GreaterCATERCAA.org, and they can get information there. We also have another website, multifamilycareersclt.com. So they can see job posts.
Multifamily
Careers,
Careers
CLT.
CLT all together
Yep.
.com.
Yep.
Please share that information. There is an opportunity because when we show up, we change the conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
But show up correctly.
Yes.
Show up with a willingness to learn. Show up with excitement for the opportunity. Show up prepared to show why you will be an asset to the organization.
And show up so that you can get a job that pays a living wage. So you can
So y'all start at a living wage.
Yes, we do start at a living wage. So entry level maintenance technicians start at $33,000 roughly a year.
Okay.
Entry level leasing consultants average $29,000 a year. But then you have the added bonus of potentially having a discount on your rent if you live on a property. And many people, and I mean many people who work in the apartment industry, live in properties where they either work or their company owns. Many
I
people
would do that if I was looking for housing today
Yes.
and happened to be looking
Yes.
for a new job opportunity.
Yes.
So, question. Do you need to be working full time in order to get access for the discounted
I don't know
rent?
that. I think everybody will be different, right?
Okay.
But
Each
ideally,
complex may have
may
different
be
rules.
different. But the industry is in need of full-time employees.
Okay.
In particular, full-time maintenance professionals. Now, your maintenance technician is not what you used to. So I'm going to go back to when I was younger. I watched Good Times. And
We all
so the superintendent, who was also the maintenance technician, Bookman, Mr.
Mr.
Bookman,
Bookman.
right? It is not like in the days in Good Times with Mr. Bookman. It's very
But
different.
I love his little tool belt.
Yes, and all
his
those
overalls,
keys. Yes.
all his keys.
And he was in too many people's business and not really doing his job.
Everybody's.
We don't want that kind of maintenance technician.
Okay, that's for clarification.
However, we do need maintenance technicians. So if you are handy in carpentry, plumbing, electrical, you do not have to be certified electricians, plumbers, or carpenters, but you do need to be handy. You need to know some things. If you have any HVAC experience or certification, your income earning potential will greatly increase. I cannot give out numbers because every company is different, but it
Right.
will greatly increase. Pool certification, if you have that, great. If you don't, fine. Because what I know is that companies want someone who can do the job. They will provide additional training for you.
Okay. See? Now, if you didn't learn anything else tonight, you learned the importance of doing a little research on the front end when you're looking for a potential home in an apartment. Just do some research. Call Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. Find out if this complex is a member. You've learned that a job fair is coming up and that we
Say it with me,
a hiring extravaganza. Not a job fair, a hiring extravaganza. I love it. I will get that right because it is so important from 2 to 5 p.m. with a focus
Yes.
on maintenance and
maintenance, leasing consultants, but anything. Honestly, folks could be hiring for property managers, regional property managers. We suspect that we will see people from other companies coming to talk to other companies, and
Right.
hopefully it's civil.
right.
We hope that it all stays civil.
Well, the thing is when you have when you have a really good employee,
Yes.
that really good employee becomes in high demand. So you
Yes.
have the chance of people trying to poach
Yes.
them. What I'm hearing is there are a lot of opportunities. And it's
Lots.
just a matter of how do we get the information out to the community at large. This
Yes.
is just one of many venues to let people know that there are opportunities
Yes.
here. We also had the opportunity to really look at what is the impact and the relationship. How does GCAA fit into this whole housing conversation? What does that look like? And there are so many opportunities and so many owners
Yeah.
that are willing to be a part on the front end, utilizing socialserve.com,
Yep.
utilizing Housing COT, utilizing our partnerships and our programs for you not to become discouraged. Because the reality is a lot of people can afford about 800
Yeah. That's right.
or less
That's right.
in rent today. And it is very difficult to find. And if there
It
are
is.
partners out there that have some units that are available that aren't necessarily going to pop up on an apartmentfinder.com website.
Oh no. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Because you're not going to find these
That's right.
there.
Right.
You have to create the relationship to learn
Absolutely.
about them.
You do. And I'd say that Social Serve being a national locator, I mean, they have everything. They have market rate, they have mid rate, and they have working or workforce housing listed. So they run the gamut. And I'd also encourage people who are looking to find housing at the lower end of the spectrum to look at single family homes, because
Okay.
that is an option, and I think a great option for them. Look for single family homes and no, you're not going to find it in South Park, so don't look. You're not going to find it in Valentine, so don't look. But you can potentially find it in North Charlotte, Northwest Charlotte,
And I want us to
University.
rethink that whole conversation anyway, for the simple fact is this idea of I don't want to live in the hood. Well,
I know
what's the hood
exactly.
today?
That's right.
what is the hood?
That's right.
It's it could be your neighborhood.
That's right.
You get to go in, you can make an investment. You
Mm-hmm.
might want to look at, there are programs to help you with down payment assistance.
Yes.
And some of those programs are stackable.
Yes.
So you might actually do better owning versus
amazing.
renting
It's amazing.
if we can change the conversation. And you have an opportunity to possibly go into an area that the market hasn't identified yet, which means you're going to get a much better price
Yes.
on it. Let's say it's an $80,000 home. Let's say you're approved for $150,000. You can take 30 of that
Yes.
and do some repairs
Yes.
on the home and
Absolutely.
fix it up.
Yep.
But you're going to see equity in
Yes.
your home,
Yes.
a lot more equity than some who may buy at the higher end
And become house poor.
and become house poor.
Yeah.
And people
Absolutely.
don't understand
No.
what house poor means.
No. Invest in yourself. Investing in your house is an investment in yourself.
We did it a few years ago
Mm-hmm.
because we had the same conversation. So we did a refi. Thank goodness.
You and
before-
Jaleesa.
Jaleesa
Yes.
and I did our refi. Thank goodness before the evaluation
Yes.
came out. So I think we did it in 2016. Put on a new roof.
Yes.
Redid our hardwood floors.
Yes.
Did some minor repairs.
Did you have to do a new
inside,
HVAC
repaint.
unit?
So we had done a new HVAC.
AC
So
unit?
this is where I messed up. So I did a new HVAC unit
Mm-hmm.
based off of the dream of a bigger house.
Okay.
So I have a unit that has a lot more capacity than the house
Gotcha.
because I figured that next round is when we'll do
Yeah,
the
you blow it
addition.
out. You blow it out. You
We'll
blow it
do-
up, and you blow it out.
That's it. We'll
Okay.
do the addition and go up.
Okay.
I'm just waiting. I'm like, y'all keep buying over here. Go-
Yes.
Congratulations on that $500,000 closing.
Yes.
We're nowhere near that, but I appreciate the equity.
Absolutely.
But try to change the conversation for people to understand you have some opportunities, even though it is very difficult, and I'm not going to discount that. There are a lot of people in our community who are having challenges.
Yes.
Challenges finding housing. Those apartment fees and application fees are expensive.
Yes.
They add up very quickly.
They do. They do.
That's why I wanted to make the suggestion that people do a little research on the front end. At least find out, are they a part of the GCAA before you even start the process of the application fee? Because
Right.
those fees add up real
Yes,
quick.
they do. Yes, they
And
do.
that's funding that could be going towards other things.
You can say that again. That's
So
exactly
we
right.
want to be smarter. Do you all ever have community conversations where you help to educate the community about apartment hunting?
No,
How
but
do
we, but
you?
no, but we will.
I
We
mean,
we will.
think about that. Like, just like you do for buying a house, is there anyone out there teaching people how to rent their first apartment?
So here's the great thing, is that theoretically does not exist, and if it does exist, it's on a very small scale,
I just
for
gave
sure.
you that.
Yes, you're going to get the credit.
Right.
Right under the title of it, we're on the fly. We're going to say an idea straight from the head and of Councilwoman LaWana Mayfield.
You know, no, it's just gonna be LaWana. That's it. We'll just be like,
courtesy of
thank-
LaWana.
it's like, thank you. Like somewhere in small print, in real small print, somewhere be like, you know what? So again, extravaganza.
No, it's going to say, but for LaWana.
you know, extravaganza. Thank you, LaWana Mayfield.
It
Just
might say,
somewhere in
but by the grace of LaWana.
yeah, we're not.
Yeah,
Even
we're gonna
go
just-
there.
the
Yeah,
lightning
we're
is
gonna
about
do
to
all-
come.
We're gonna do all that. Wait,
In
all
the
of a sudden
name of
bright light-
LaWana.
and the bright light comes out, and all of a sudden I'm like, no.
Yeah,
It's like I
exactly.
did not do it.
But we can do that, right? So what most people, very few people know that we have an education foundation. Yes, we do. And what I was surprised to find that out when I was doing my research for the job. But we have an education foundation, and our education foundation has actually given scholarships to CPCC in their apartment maintenance program. And actually, that fund paid out a scholarship in 2018 to a young man, and I look forward to meeting him sometime soon, taking some pictures with him. So our education foundation now is being crafted such that we can do these types of things, so that we can not just be a
Wonderful.
benefit to our members. While we should, our members are our foundation.
Exactly.
We also need to be a benefit to this community.
Right.
We are a part of this community.
Because
We
a
need
lot
to
of
be a
people
part.
it's their first apartment, and you
Yes.
don't know what to look for in your
Absolutely.
first apartment. You don't know what questions to ask. You
Yes.
don't know how to maneuver through that. So
Yeah.
you're really reliant. So
You
you're
don't
just
know how to
dropping
avoid being
application
evicted.
fees all over the place.
We
And
need you to know
I
how
need
to
you to
avoid
stay.
being. We need
And
you
the
to know
impact
how to
on your
manage your
credit.
money. Yes.
The impact
Yes.
that an eviction has
That's
on
right.
your credit.
That's right. Yeah. Should I go out and eat dinner 30 days a month, or should I buy groceries and make sure that my rent is going to be paid on the first of the month? Those tough decisions that we need to help
You get
people
a 5-day
sometimes.
grace period, right?
Yes.
You get a 5-day grace period. So as long as the rent's paid by the 5th. Like
Yes.
you don't want to go like the
Yes.
you don't want to wake up the morning of the 7th, because then that's another conversation.
No, you don't. That is another conversation, and it's the wrong type of transaction to have with your apartment community.
Right.
You don't want to have that transaction.
Okay. See, those are but things like
Yes.
that seem like it's a given.
Yes.
Isn't necessarily a given, because let's think about it. I was out on my own at 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily, when I was in school, we had home ec. We had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. So when I went and got my first apartment, even though back then you could lie about your age and they didn't really have a way to verify it, unlike today, modern technology.
The
it's like
interweb
before-
just didn't
while you just
exist.
standing right there, it's like, okay, so you're actually 17. I can see that. I was like, really? No, that's not true. So back then you could tell some fibs in order to get. So I knew how to read a lease,
Right.
how to understand a lease, to
You were smarter than
recognize-
the average Barrett.
Right, and
Yes.
God takes care of fools and babies. So a lot of people don't know that, or if they grew up
Yeah.
in an environment where where parents didn't talk about money.
Money. Yes.
So you don't have the conversation about financial literacy.
Yes.
You don't know that your parents are actually paying the bills on time, or you grow up seeing past due
Right.
notices
Right.
or late notices.
Right.
So you think that's
You think
the
that's
norm.
normal? Yes.
And you don't realize that there's an impact
right.
on your credit,
Mm-hmm.
and your credit impacts your quality of life
Mm-hmm.
and what you have access to.
Yes, ma'am.
So
That's right.
that would be a wonderful addition if you all have a conversation and think that that's a good direction to go in. To
I think
create
it's a phenomenal discussion to
Resonance.
have. And so, where is it couched in between some things, right? Do we have a series of things, or do we have just kind of a one-day thing? I will tell you that I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got to Johnson C. Smith as a freshman, and in the student union, there are always those credit card companies ready
They're
to sign
waiting.
you up
They are
for a
waiting
credit
for you young
card.
people.
And so I signed up for a credit card, and I had like a $700 limit. And growing up, I always wanted to shop at Bloomingdale's. I want to shop at Bloomingdale's. And so I took that credit card
And bought
over
2
the
items.
holiday, and I bought some things
You
from
bought 2 things.
Bloomingdale's. And I maxed the credit card out, and I didn't pay it off, right? And I just let it just become delinquent. And it just stained my credit. Oh, it was horrible. So when I went to buy my first car, my interest rate was like 11% on my first car, and it was and that car didn't even have a radio in it. So I will just say to you now.
And even at that education piece,
Right.
because someone would hear that and think, oh, my
Right.
interest rate is 11%.
Yes, that's not a good
What do
thing,
you
right.
mean my interest rate is
11%?
Like, my interest rate needs to be like a 2.5,
That's right.
3.4,
That's
point something.
That's right. And so but here's the rub. So becoming educated, going to school, but even if you go to school of hard knocks, you go to school of life, right? Is knowing that, okay, this meant that 11% interest rate hit my pockets in a major way. It meant I had less for housing and less for food and less for other discretionary things. What I absolutely decided to do with my 2 children were that I was going to cover them, that we were not going to have them not understand money.
Right.
No, you're going to understand money. So
Right.
my son having to have a savings account at 14,
Okay.
understanding that, Fifth Third Bank had that, but my daughter having a bank account at 16 through the Girl Scouts, my kids were both added to my credit cards as authorized users when they were able to be done. So I think it was 16 for both of them. That was important to me because my credit is like one of my children at this point.
Okay.
And I treat it like one of my children. But my son was able to buy his first house last summer because he has amazing credit, but it was because of what I did. I didn't just add them and then not take good care of my credit, right? Because you can't add your children to your credit cards and then act foolish with your credit cards because you're going to mess up their credit.
Right.
No, you need to add them and then still take really good care of your credit cards so that they will have great credit. Start them out right. So I would love to.
And
That's
that's
my
a
PSA.
training.
Please start your babies out right.
And that's a training. So I learned this morning there's a young man that started a program where he is talking financial literacy with middle and high school students.
Mm-hmm.
As many ways as we can start this conversation as early as we can.
Right.
Also recognizing, again, some Gen Xers could use
Like
the
me, right?
information, can use a refresher.
Yes.
I didn't have a positive relationship with money when I was younger.
We
Me
have
and
that
money-
in common, unfortunately.
Me and
don't
money
we?
had a horrible relationship because on my end, I felt like money caused me to lose too much. I lost too much between my parents passing and things that happened with them leaving a large sum of money. That's the
Right.
quickest
The
way
money
to tear up a
became
family.
tainted, right? Oh gosh, this is connected to this. And yes, money will divide a family.
Money
yes.
will tear up a
Yes.
family. So I did not have the proper relationship, and I did not start building that relationship until my late 20s.
Yeah.
And doggone near 30.
Wow.
30s before I really changed, did the work that I needed to do. And if we can help someone avoid that,
Absolutely.
if
Absolutely.
we can get you access to the information
Absolutely.
a lot sooner,
Absolutely.
then you can make better choices. Because when you go and you're looking to buy that home, we don't we want you to have the best interest rate. Even if you're looking to refi,
Yes.
we want you to what did we get? When we did the refi, 2.75
Yeah, which is incredible.
interest rate,
Yeah.
of which I thought they was wrong because I was like, let's hurry up and sign this paperwork before they figure this out. So because I
Well,
still
no, and that
wasn't-
was in 2016, right?
Right.
Yeah, when the
So-
interest rates were super, super low.
Super low.
Like unheard of low.
like that was perfect timing because
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to do that now.
I'm sure I
the interest rates have gone back
refinanced
up.
something back in 2016, and I was like, this is amazing.
It's like, thank you for telling me to do this now and me not
Yes.
procrastinating on
Yes.
it and waiting. But even at that,
And
it takes
values were high.
education.
So interest rates were low, values were high.
It's like,
It's a
thank
win-win.
you, but you didn't know.
That's right.
And you don't know what you don't know. And the
Yes.
whole purpose of this show, the whole purpose of Square Media Network, the whole purpose of the vision of Steve Rutherford is to create opportunities to educate people on what you don't know.
Yes.
For us to learn
Mhm.
and for the community to learn that there are so many more opportunities out there than what we may see right in front of us.
Absolutely.
And even though I might watch entirely too much television at times, I still recognize that I have to be engaged to what's going on
Yes.
around me in order to be a productive contributor to society. And for me, one of the ways that I attempt to contribute is by having on a guest who can drop knowledge in a way that is not intimidating,
Amen.
in a way that people can receive it,
Amen.
in a way where they can then talk about it with their friends, with their family, when they sitting around and say, you know, I heard that, and you know, I didn't know that they had,
Right.
oh, you know, they got an extravaganza coming up,
Yes.
and they are going to be hiring
Yes.
from 2 to 5 p.m.
Yes.
So things like that
For the entire
make a
public
difference.
and not just Mecklenburg County. So if you're in Iredell, if you're in Cabarrus, if you're in Gaston County, if you're in York County, South Carolina, Union, Lincoln, Cleveland, Stanley.
Well, you are a regional organization.
We are.
So
we
that
are.
means you
We're
have
a lot of
representation.
counties.
Now, of course, I'm going to be biased and say Charlotte Mecklenburg. So for all the Charlotte Mecklenburg people that are looking for opportunities, full-time opportunities, here you've heard it several times. Go on to the website, find out, do a Google search
Yes.
on Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. Take ownership.
That's right. Tell your friends, tell your cousins, tell your niece that just got her associate's degree in fashion merchandising. I don't know. Tell whomever you want to tell. We will pack out that space. We want to
You
pack out that
graduates
space.
that got
Oh,
this
my
really
goodness,
great
yes.
degree
Yes.
in fine arts and
Yes.
some other things and looking for work, this might be a great opportunity for
Yes.
you. One, pays well,
Yes.
great benefits,
Yes.
have the opportunity to possibly have a discount
Yes.
on your rent so you can get out of mom and dad's house.
And incredible
have some
upward
privacy.
mobility. So the career pathway is real. Some places have ceilings. We have unbelievable career pathways in this industry.
Again, you kind of make me want to rethink my whole part-time job.
We hope you will.
Situation
We hope you will.
because so much fun is that. Is
But
there-
you're kind of good at that too. So
you know, I love service, but you know, real talk, and
Yes.
we've had this conversation together. Some days you just don't feel like you're enough.
I
Because
get
being
that.
black
I
and
get that.
female and the responsibilities and the roles
that.
and for all the meetings that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
something else is happening that is not even on your radar,
Right.
and then people see you later and they're like,
Right.
well, you
You
went at
didn't-
so-and-so.
Yes.
I haven't seen you, and it's like, thank you.
Yeah, I did see your
Because-
Facebook post asking for people to let you
I'm
know.
like,
when-
can y'all?
but you're only one person. You cannot be everywhere.
Right,
And
and-
you should let yourself off the hook for not being
Yeah.
able to be everywhere.
Right. I am so much harder on me
Yes.
than anyone else could be. So then when someone's
Yes.
like, well, I've never seen, and I own it. They're
Yeah.
like, you know what? I've never seen her. You're probably right. And I'm going to ask if with all the stuff that I've got, have you come to any other things, any other town
You don't
halls,
see
any
me.
other
I don't see
community
you.
events?
We're even.
I'm like, osmosis? I was supposed to know that you needed me. Or I'm good for, oh, you emailed me and I didn't respond, because I always say emails get lost, so I'll pull up. No, okay. Oh, you called me because we have someone that captures all the calls and put them in the form of an email? No. So I was supposed to know because,
Because you're so great.
right. So how about this? Here's my contact. We're going to start fresh today so that we can move forward. But then I think about all the spaces that you and I are both in and the role that you have in those spaces. The previous role you had with leading the conversation of actual housing development
Yes.
for our working community. And now in this role with
Yeah.
leading the organization and stepping in as unapologetically Kim Graham, as someone who has honed her skills and still
Yeah.
honing her skills, and as a proud black woman
I am.
in this space,
I am.
to say that others can be in this space with you, and that you are standing here with your arms open
Yes.
saying, come and join me, because I'm not trying to be the only one.
No, that's right. Wait, I am not. And so there's room for everybody.
Any last thoughts that you want to share?
Just thank you so much for having me. Thank you for allowing me to say hiring extravaganza.
Hiring extravaganza.
Or yeah, I do have staff that say extravaganza.
Extravaganza. Yes.
That's the running joke in our office. I cannot say enough just how great this industry is, and it's huge. We house 400,000 plus people of all shapes, sizes, colors, socioeconomic background. And we want our relationship with the community to be more than a three-dimensional transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that, I thank you for tuning in to Unapologetically Black on the Square Media Network. Please tune in. We have additional shows. Of course, we have The Project with Steve Rutherford, as well as the Deuce Lux podcast with Lux Lisbon and Katie Lux.
Awesome.
So tune in, Square Media Network. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Ms.
my
Kim
friend.
Graham, thank you
Thank
for
you, thank
joining
you,
me
thank
on
you.
Unapologetically Black. You all have an amazing Memorial Weekend.
Yes.
Do you want to sing it out at all?
The fact that I didn't know you were recording it to begin
To sing
with.
us in,
Oh,
and I want
my
y'all to know those
goodness.
special gifts that people have.
Oh, this is
those
going to come back to
special
haunt
gifts,
me.
it would not. I wish I could. Luckily, I faded into the background.
That was a good fade, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, my gosh.
Fade into the background.